Side story 1 New employee Kim Rok Soo, 1. Less than side story 1 New employee Kim Rok Soo, 1. Greater than. This place was just called, company. Of course, it had the grand name of Disaster Prevention and Protection of Civilization, but nobody in or out of the company called it that. Disasters were never ending and it didn't do anything big enough to really say that it was protecting civilization. Nonetheless, as a third organization separate from guilds and the government, the company mediated any issues between the two other organizations in addition to taking care of monster invasions, guild inspections, and government audits among many other things. And today was orientation day for all new employees of the company who joined this year. Are they our field side people from this group? Yes, Director Nim. The man called the director nodded his head at his subordinate's confirmation and looked at the new employees who were separated into two groups. There was a line in the middle of this quite large hall and chairs were placed on both sides of the line. Right side body, left side head. Those were the titles for the two parts. The body side had the new employees for the departments that use their bodies, such as going into battle. Is that team 1 over there? Yes sir, TSK. The corners of the director's lips went up for some odd reason. He looked as if he was about to sneer. Hand me the files. Right here, sir. The secretary handed 2 files over without even needing an explanation. PFFFT. The director chuckled. The people for team leader Lee Soo-hyuk's side are quite weird. Tap, tap. The director observed the names of the 2 new employees assigned to team 1. Less than Kim Rok Soo. Greater than. Less than Choi Young-soo. Greater than. The director shook his head after going through the 2 of their personnel records and interview notes. Agu, it's going to be hard for team leader Lee. The corners of his lips were curled up contrary to his comments. The secretary peeked at the director before looking away and starting to think. Funny bastard, you were the one who said to put all the good newbies with your damn lackeys. Why are you pretending that you don't know? You greedy son of a bitch. This was his superior, but the director truly was an idiot. Do you really think trying to keep Lee Soo-hyuk in check will work? Team leader Lee Soo-hyuk. Although he was only a team leader because he chose to remain one in order to go out in the field, everybody inside and outside of the company knew the truth. Lee Soo-hyuk was the symbol of this company, but it really will be difficult for the team leader Nim this time. After looking at the personnel records, the secretary agreed that the lowest-ranking newbies were assigned to Lee Soo-hyuk's team. One is focused on martial arts and sword arts while the other is for rear support. Each team was assigned 2 to 4 newbies. This was a temporary placement and they were moved or could request to change teams based on a team's flair or style of doing things. Team leader Lee should have been assigned a minimum of 4 newbies. Even clueless newbies were necessary based on the amount of work that team did. However, they were assigned the minimum amount of 2 employees and those 2 were quite terrible as well. He is skilled in sword arts but he doesn't have any exceptional abilities he can use right now. Exceptional abilities were talking about strong attacks that could be used against enemies or monsters. Employee Choi Young-soo doesn't have something like that. That was the reason he was determined to be a grade 10 ability user. However, his physical abilities were great and he showed significant potential for growth. The other one. The problem was the other person, Kim Rok Soo. I think he chose the wrong team. The rear support that the body side needed were supports that could be helpful for battle. However, this newbie, Kim Rok Soo's ability focused on records. He would be well received if he went to guild inspections or government audits teams. Kim Rok Soo, who was close to the type of talent that the head side desperately needed, was not as useful on the body side. That was the reason the company suggested he chooses a department on the head side, but Kim Rok Soo was firm on requesting a body side department. Hoo-hoo. The secretary, who had been deep in thought, heard the director laugh. I'm not sure if the punks in team leader Lee's team will be able to survive today's training. Sir, are you talking about the hazing ritual? It was tradition in the company to haze the new employees during orientation. Yes. What if they get last place? It'll be terrible for team leader Lee's face. You stupid idiot. Do you really think that team leader Lee will care about something like that? Then he would have already moved up to become the chairman of this company and fired your sorry ass. The secretary was grumbling internally but responded with a calm expression on his face. I hope everybody safely completes the hazing ritual without getting hurt. That is true. The director agreed with that. However, he clicked his tongue while looking at the 2 newbies on Lee Soo-hyuk's team. TSK. One looks like a country bumpkin while the other looks completely out of it. The secretary agreed with that. His eyes headed toward the person who was wearing a suit that was too large for him. Choi Young-soo was looking around while touching the sleeves of his clothes. The suit he bought in the thrift store did not look good. He looked around and noticed that the others' gazes were headed toward him and the person next to him. The gazes were not good. The gazes were either wary of them as newbies to that Lee Soo-hyuk's team or curiosity. Screech. Choi Young-soo moved his chair a bit to the side and started speaking. Hem. He was looking at the pale and skinny man who looked less undersized and more like a sharp blade. Choi Young-soo's gaze headed toward the man's name tag. His name is Kim Rok Soo. Kim Rok Soo was the fellow newbie assigned to Team 1. Choi Young-soo flashed his unique smile that made him seem like a good person. It was a bright smile that usually reminded people of a golden retriever. He looked quite harmless, especially because of the loose second-hand suit he had to buy to fit his tall height and wide shoulders. Choi Young-soo flinched after making eye contact with Kim